fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gotta be biblical.
It does really fire you up, that intro.
I feel like getting up and dancing.
Welcome everyone to Patriots across the pond and Frens, episode 25. Today we've got an amazing guest, George H. Lewis. I've watched a lot of stuff you do, George, and very, very interesting. And I think we've got the longest title for any episode we've done as of yet. So today's episode and the stuff we're going to be talking about is Colombia and Venezuela situation, astrologically and geopolitically, the Monroe Doctrine, American independence, the Saturn Neptune Conjunction, and the massive shift from the Age of Pisces into the Age of Aquarius, and the reimagination of Atlantis and Lemuria combined. George, welcome.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you, Alicia. It's great to be with you. You guys are the epitome of the true patriot, because it doesn't matter where we come from, whether we speak with an English accent or some American accent. We believe in freedom and the human species stepping into its power once again, its imaginative, creative ability to create independently.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, there is a lot going on in the world at the moment, especially with the latest thing is Maduro and the Venezuela situation. So, do you want to start there, George?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, you know, I've always been an amateur historian. I've loved history, philosophy, understanding, dare I say it, our ontology, who we are. And I remember many years ago, 20 plus years ago, just going over the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine goes back to 1823, I believe. And it's really, the concept was the West remains the West. No interference. Originally back then, it was no interference from Europe. But of course, today, no interference, not just from Europe, but from China, from Russia. And Marco Rubio has made that quite explicit recently in what the ultimate aim is. And I believe this. You see, I don't believe a lot of what politicians say, but I believe we are returning to a multipolar world. And this is where I want to give some hope, and also more than hope, faith, because I don't agree with David Icke in this regard. And someone like him is such an amazing force for questioning the narrative in the last 30 plus years. But the United States prophetically is claiming its power back. It's starting, the Trump phenomenon is the great rebuke towards globalism and the European control system, London, the Vatican, the Masonic systems, dare I say it, even Israel. And, you know, we're told in Q that saving Israel to last. Of course, that's very cryptic. But we have to keep the friends close and the enemies closer. That's kind of how it works as the whole system unravels. And so for me, the Monroe Doctrine, I think, is very much part of the core ideology, philosophy of what this administration is trying to do and is succeeding in doing. So some people, of course, with Venezuela half the population, whatever, thinks that it's Trump getting hold of the oil resources. And it's not to say that that's not true, but it's much bigger than that. The other half thinks it's stopping drug trafficking and child trafficking. That is also true. And those are both major parts of it. But ultimately, it's Venezuela, dare I say, Grand Colombia. Back in 1820, 1819, Grand Colombia included Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, and it was going to be modeled on like a United Nations group, and it didn't get going, unfortunately. Too many complications. But what I see now is we're coming together in the Americas, whether it's north, central, or south. We are going to ultimately be able to travel easily within the whole continent of North, South, Central America. Not yet, not tomorrow, but that is the end game. And the Monroe Doctrine basically stipulates that America controls America. You have the Russian sphere, you have the Sino-Chinese sphere. Where Europe fits in is going to be a very interesting question, because Europe is basically going to either be part of a Russian confederation, or maybe it will be its own independent configuration, but I think it will be largely controlled then by the United States and or Russia. And this is very unpalatable to a lot of Europeans, but I think Europeans just don't understand the way the world's going. It's going to go back into local trading blocks, not globalism. Was the confusion, was the destructive element to all these civilizations. And I think we're now going to see local governance become much more powerful.
And
I've seen a few maps of late, and one very recently, whereas sort of the Americas here controlled by Trump and this sort of thing, Putin here and Xi down here. But we've also heard in a lot of XRP talk and stuff that there's going to be sort of 7 kingdoms.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Controlled. We know we're moving into a new system of love and the golden age and all these sorts of things. But have you got any input on that? How you think that might unfold?
I mean, it's an interesting one with Europe, because certainly from an astrological perspective, with Pluto now at 2-3 degrees of Aquarius, that is right over the moon, the natal moon of the European Union. Now, many of your listeners don't do astrology, but let me put that very clearly. The moon is the people, Pluto is transformation. We will see the demise of the European Union within the next year and a half. I believe the demise is all but done anyway.
I would agree.
Exactly. It just has to play out for the public consciousness to see it, to ground it in reality. The European Union has lost its power. It's lost its force, its ability. And so what will happen next to Europe, I don't know. I mean, I'm not some prophet here, but we have to go back to the nation states initially. So England, Great Britain, Italy, Germany, France will have to negotiate their own relationships, trade and otherwise, with the other great powers. And that means with Russia, with China, and with the United States. Now, I'm very Margaret Thatcher, Stu, in my understanding of this. And let me be clear, is I was a funny duck as a teenager, because I had pictures in my wardrobe of Margaret Thatcher on my left, black cutouts, and Princess Diana on my right, both fighting for freedom in very different ways. And I think Mrs. Thatcher, Lady Thatcher she became, was warning us against the mission creep of communism, socialism, communism through the back door, through socialism, through the European Union, way back before anyone really realized it. And for me, it's not so much the mining strike, it's about her steadfast defense of freedom against communism, which is why I get the goosebumps every time I watch a speech of hers. And so the transatlantic relationship always inspired me as a 12-year-old. I mean, I was a young boy. I was a very small kid, but I felt I got it. I remember my father telling me in the 70s he was having to pay 80% tax at one point, and he wasn't even a rich man. He was working really hard, in a small business and trying to get ahead. And then the Thatcher Revolution came in, and of course, a lot of it got corrupted. We don't need to go into that now. Reagan got all but assassinated. Fortunately not, but he got silenced. Mrs. Thatcher got bombed in the Brighton bombing, and of course we were told that was the IRA. But you see, for me, I've always known, no. This is the subterfuge. This is the inversion, the infiltration. And so I want to see Great Britain get its power back and then do bilateral relationships. Maybe Britain could, dare I say it, become part of the American sphere. And I know that's very controversial, but I see Britain flourishing if it were to choose that.
What did Maggie Thatcher say? This lady is not for turning. Is that what she said?
She did.
Yeah.
This lady is not for turning. She was a real bulwark against communism. She knew it. And of course, she had to be quite clever in how she articulated it back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
There wasn't the appetite, information, knowledge for her to link communism with greater Zionism then. It was, and whether she knew or didn't is kind of irrelevant. I suspect she probably did, but she wasn't able to articulate it then because of the zeitgeist. And today there is an understanding. I mean, for me, it's about freedom. And I say this to my Jewish friends, my Muslim friends, my Christian friends, my secular friends. Are we really on the side of humans stepping into their potential as loving, kind individuals who can be in their creativity? Or are we really going to stay in the fear and actually be run by psychopaths?
Yeah. I'll just add one thing before you say anything, Lisa.
Sure.
What you were saying then about the European Union, I think Brexit was a major, obviously, catalyst for the breakup of the European Union. And, you know, there was a lot of Ramonas here, but we were... I actually think, that vote was 51, 49% or 52, 48, something like that, same old shit. But I think it was a lot more than that actually voted to leave. But yeah, whoever was behind that, whether there was any white hat controlling that or anything, but yeah, that was when that happened, that was a sort of like, watch this space.
I'm going to suspect there was some white hat stuff going on, because the manipulation through all the voting machines, as we all know, has been extant and very thorough for 20, 30 years in different ways. Obviously, Dominion took it to a new level in the last 10 plus years. But even before it, I mean, I think any sensible person wouldn't be able to believe any election result really since the Second World War. And the other thing is they're controlled. So whether it's Labour or Conservative, we've all learnt this now. That's just, you know, two puppets from the same string.
Yeah. And the illusion that we really have a choice, you know, about who we're voting for, because even beyond whether the election itself is rigged, which we all pretty much know that's been going on for a long time, you also have the candidates who chose them. You know, it's all pre-done. It's all and giving people the illusion that they have a choice. But what I was going to say is, with regard to Brexit and also the let's say the fall of the EU, I think, you know, we saw a lot of that during Trump's capitulation tour, where he let us know, especially when he walked in front of everybody, and he was quite aggressive about how he did that and showed everyone he was boss. And I think it's like you said, it's a matter of how does this play out for the collective consciousness, for them to absorb all this stuff. And, you know, Stu and I say this ad nauseum, but Trump said a long time ago, we will never, ever, ever broadcast what we're doing militarily. So if we're seeing it and we're hearing it, we have to assume it's done, right? And how far back does that job go that it was done? It's just playing out. And, you know, about the vote, I just had a couple of notes here about what you said about how many people actually, I think, Stu, you said it, really voted for Brexit. Well, you know, isn't it the same? You look at these blue cities in the United States, right? And the state is now a blue state, right? But look at New York, for example, right? It's considered blue, but I guarantee you it's really not that blue. There's parts of it that get the attention, that the corruption there, it's the way they push through and control the votes. But, you know, yeah, you have liberal people spat, but for the most part, I'm not buying that all these blue states are really blue.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I mean, they're liberal enclaves, but this is the Great Awakening. A lot of people have started to question, and a lot of people also are not prepared to question in public. And there's always been like that. I always remember reading about the Revolutionary Wars. A third of the population wanted the change, but they weren't going to put their head above the pulpit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, in these blue states, don't forget, going back to the election of the Obama election, it was downright dangerous. It was downright dangerous to come out, and then moving from there, right? If you said anything bad about Obama, or that you were racist, it was brutal. You're talking about policies and facts, and these people are, we probably know who was behind making this worse than it was. But then you move into the Trump era, and how many people were assaulted, their cars were destroyed, their property was violated. So people didn't wear their hats and didn't put out their signs, but they were secretly in the movement.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is I always want to stress to people is I sense truly that Trump's sole mission is to create chaos and collapse the old system, which is the New World Order.
100%.
Trump isn't actually here archetypally or from a soul contract perspective to create the new system. We are here to do that. He's here to disrupt that connection between, the Vatican and Venezuela or London and the cabal, the criminal syndicate, operated out of the EU, operated out of Iran, operated out of the black hats of China, the dark hats in Russia. And again, this is my speculation. I have no proof of this, but I have felt for a long time that Putin and Trump are working for, and they're the front men for an organization which is really trying to help humanity. But it's not saving humanity. This is the difference. This is where I diverge. There's no savior here. We save ourselves, because the second coming is the understanding, the inner standing, actually, I should say, the inner standing that the Christ is within us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sense of stepping into our own power as we the people, which is very American, the fundamental part of our constitutional republic, that we govern ourselves, and we're getting that power back. And Trump is a catalyst, a very powerful catalyst for that.
Yeah. Well, two things in the Q drops there. What if China and Russia are working with POTUS, and others are working with POTUS to take down the New World Order? Yeah. Something we've talked about a lot. And also, trust the plan. Now, a lot of people say, oh, trust the plan, Q-tards and stuff. But Trump is a disruptor. This is to get the people motivated, we the people, because we the people ultimately are that plan.
I totally agree with you on that. And that's his astrology totally backs it up, Stu. Astrology never lies. Someone has a sun conjunct Uranus. The sun is the conscious sense of self. The planet Uranus is the disruptor, is the innovator, the bringer in the new. And it's also very unpredictable. It's like lightning bolts. You can never predict what Trump is doing. The New World Order at the moment, the deep state, if you want to call it that, they're very annoyed because they do not know what Trump and the White Hats is doing. The New World Order's in the dark. So the White Hats, the collective, as some people call it, they're helping, showing us how to govern ourselves by pulling power away from the center and to the periphery, to the locality. And that's, again, the essential quality of the United States. And dare I say it, I think Russia too. Maybe that's part of the Tartarian conversation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. So Maduro then has just been taken down. Now, we've talked about this, that we've heard they've been going into Venezuela for at least a couple of months now and stuff. And like Elisa was saying, Trump says we will never telegraph our moves to the enemy. So is this an operation, because it was so smooth and it went so perfectly? Had Maduro made deals? Is this something that had gone down before but then was just revealed to the public? And what do you think is going to come from this? Because we're talking about election fraud. We're talking about all sorts of things, this being another catalyst of future events.
So I think we're all learning that all these figureheads are figureheads. Maduro was not really in charge of Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We have to then carry that theme across. Trump isn't really in charge. They are figureheads. They are the front guy. They are the portal through which we, the people, can see a figurehead. So someone like Maduro, also a Sephardic Jew, which is interesting. and he's been to the Wailing Wall in the past several times. It's interesting that it was on January the 3rd, 3 a.m. was his arrest. And of course, that's very Masonic, very symbolic. Symbolism will be their downfall. I suspect, and again, I don't know, that actually Maduro was a plant. Either he was switched at some point to the White Hats, or he was an asset embedded there to actually allow at this time for it to happen, because it was so smooth. Not one American soldier, we were told, was injured, hurt, was killed. I understand Nathaniel Rothschild congratulated Trump on what happened. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. And I think we don't know. Like, we just had this whole conversation throughout the week. We don't know. But if you consider the Rothschilds, it would seem a little strange to me that any of them that had any kind of control are still around at all in any way. And so are we, remember they said a while ago that the way they're going to sort of red pill a lot of people is to make the people they already follow be the ones to give them that message.
Yeah.
So whether these people have been white-mailed or they're actors, right? We just don't know, who are now. I mean, look at the things Schumer has said in the last couple of months. It's like absurd, like that would come out of that man's mouth.
Remind us give me some really good ones that Schumer said recently.
Well, he came out, and I'm not even thinking specifically, but there's been a lot of instances where he has actually backed some of the things that Trump is doing. So really? Like, seriously? So, and of course, he's on the list. He's on the list with, many lists, but I was referring mostly to the Venezuela list, right, where we have all the senators that have had contact, right? It's both of our lovely New York senators that are on that, Gillibrand and Schumer. But to your point, whether it's Nathan Rothschild or it happens to be Maduro, it does seem quite movie-esque how it's playing, and the timing, and it's the third, and it's and there were a couple of other of these the other gentleman that was taken down on January 3rd as well. Stu, I think you mentioned that the other day.
Yeah, I think Soleimani was taken out January the 3rd, and Noriega was arrested on January the 3rd.
Yeah,
that was in the early 90s.
I mean, and so smoothly.
I know it's all celestial dates and all this stuff that both sides are doing things on.
Yeah, it's a movie. There's no question about it. I mean, the other interesting thing, I've been listening a little bit to. Do you know Susan Kokinda of Promethean Action? She's
yes, yeah, they're putting out some great work at the moment.
I'm really enjoying her work. I mean, I followed her for a while, but it's very relevant. And I think over 300,000 people have been killed to drug overdoses in the United States due to the Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia cartel. And so in some ways, when you look at it strategically, it's also a little bit of a warning towards Canada. And Canada's going to come into the spotlight next, I believe. Yeah. With Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, is now, the Prime Minister of Canada. Just let everyone breathe into that. The governor of the Bank of England, the former governor of the Bank of England, is Prime Minister of Canada. This is really showing us what's really been going on, how the British Empire's system of irregular warfare has been conducted. Mm-hmm. And so Venezuela is one of the centers of trafficking in drugs, children and drugs and all this stuff. So the attack on Venezuela is an attack really on the City of London and the Vatican banking system. And I think more and more people are going to see that link as we go into it. Offshore banking was set up to sidestep, you see, in places like Venezuela, to sidestep regulations and sovereignty. And Trump really is, never by saying it, but by 5D chess, as we're told, but it's true, is defeating the British Empire, because the British Empire never really lost. I mean, yes, 1776, from what we understand, there was a win, but your history is going to be better than mine, but the 1812 battle was one blip. And then by the time we got to 1871, and there was much in between, the Rothschild Central European banking system was fully in place after our Civil War in the United States.
Yeah.
And so the American experiment was very short-lived in reality. And this time it's going to actually work with proper tariffs and a proper system. And I think, as you said, Stu, Putin and Xi are in on this. Now, one thing on Xi, if I may say, I remember reading this years ago, and I did his astrology. I just looked at it. Xi lost his father.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese
CCP, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And I speak as a parent and as a child. I think those bonds run very deep. And Xi has a strong Scorpio stellium in his chart, if I recall correctly. And that is very strategic, long-term planning. And it fits his archetype then to be working in the shadows, behind the scenes, taking it down from within.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, as far as the American experiment, we have to remember that, back in 1781, I believe, we really didn't win the war because we were so indebted. And there was a lot of takeover. So truthfully, we really haven't been free. We've been under the rule of the of Britain, and taking that all down. And there's just so much symbolism, that we see with Trump and him indicating.
It really is.
And it's just so over the top. But what I was going to say, as far as this idea of Venezuela, the drug trade, like the children is kind of like a whole other thing in terms of people really understanding that, right? But they can understand drugs, and they can understand this war on drugs and all this other nonsense. But I think at this point, understanding how those countries played a role in bringing the drugs to this country that resulted in the deaths, what most people, I don't think, still understand is that the US government was behind all that. I mean, you had the CIA, and you had these organizations that were above, so to speak, who were just like Maduro and these other people. And that, to me, is, I think, especially for parents, and I know parents personally who've had children that have drug problems, and it's a horrible thing to watch and go through, and to learn how betrayed we've been from within when it comes to that, the drugs. And again, the children is a whole other thing that takes a whole different kind of mind to wrap your arms around. But I think starting with drugs, because they haven't mentioned that. They haven't mentioned all the islands in that area. They haven't, gotten into all that. But the drug situation is truly, I think it's going to, I think that's going to, when people realize, people don't understand, I think, in mass scale, the three-letter agencies and what they have really been all about.
Three-letter agencies have really been against the American people for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
We all know that, but again, how far back do you go? Was it founded? I mean, this is where I find it very interesting, because MI6 really helped set up the CIA, and in of that self, it's going to show you, it's going to have a very different energetic. The fact that the British Empire helped found the CIA, you just have to look at it logically. That is an energy that is going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so we're looking a long way back in time. I mean, 1947 is a long way away now.
Yeah.
And so, when we look at Venezuela as, from what I understand, the largest output outside Langley in the Americas, it's not just any longer the largest oil reserves in the world. We're talking 300 billion barrels, by the way, from Venezuela. No longer will those be controlled by foreign adversaries or drug trafficking organizations. The British Empire is the epitome of the archetype of the oligarch, the rule of the few. I know it. I grew up in that elite culture. So when it comes to drug trafficking, it's the most notorious in the world. You only have to go back 200 years. I used to live in Hong Kong with the Swires and the Jardines and the drug traffickers of the families that ran the cartels then with opium, the opium trade, you see. So the opium wars. So this has just taken on a new form, and this is being stopped for the first time. And it's messy because human beings don't understand it. So they're going to jump to many different conclusions. And it's not that they're all wrong, but they've got to go behind. There are many layers to it. So I don't think it's just pure regime change, this, like Tony Blair in Iraq. It's very different. I think Maduro was turned or is a white hat asset now. Even John Bolton admitted this is not standard regime change, which backs up your point, guys, that he's now working, saying the right things. Trump's allies are now very confused. Yes, there's some split in the MAGA movement at the moment. But the British imperial system is now fully in the spotlight. And the Five Eyes is fully in the spotlight. The New World Order really is being dismantled.
Yeah, dark is being pushed into the light, isn't it? And what you were saying earlier is, Elisa, about, you know, Rothschilds and stuff like that. Just remember, you know, not necessarily just because your surname is Rothschild or Rockefeller, etc., means you are one of them. You know, there's a lot of people in these families that do have a conscience and do want to get out and do want to work with white hats and this sort of stuff. And, you know, we're going to find out some are good or bad and some that we think are bad are good, etc. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to think, you know, from a very idealistic standpoint, right, that if you really truly cut off the trade, you cut everything off with the drugs, it's got to start trickling down, right, in the sense that the person on the street is no longer going to be able to have access, you know, because it's not available and the way it's been. And I mean, look, we know somewhere, somehow there are drugs or remedies that can get rid of addiction. We know that that exists and they've withheld that, right, which could help a lot of people. But it was not, it wasn't in the plan. I mean, there's so many levels to why they want people around the world addicted. However, I think what's happening now, I'm hopeful in the next year or two, we'll actually start to see that play out in practical terms in the big cities and things like that. And if people are still getting access to drugs, I'm talking about the addicts, the people that are they're ill, and you know that the supply is going to run out. There's probably supplies that are still there, right, in the pipelines, but it's just such a sad thing. And now, of course, when we talk about the children, that's a completely different type of business and trafficking. And I think that's going to take a lot longer, if you want my opinion, just because of the pockets that exist. You know, they may have gotten rid of a lot of the bad guys at the top that are running these international, you know, the tunnels and this and that and the adrenochrome, but you know, you have so much exploitation throughout the world, which I think, Stu, we heard it was like 35% of the trafficking actually happens from family members, fathers, mothers that are trafficking their own kids. So that's going to, I think, take a little bit more of a while to get into the local areas with these monsters. But I think drugs is a good start, because don't forget, drugs are also used when it comes to trafficking and drugging, you know, these victims. And so I see it all really, it's looking very bright.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the child thing should really ultimately unify everyone, but it's
Hopefully.
the hardest one because a lot of people are still resistant to believing it's really true, because it's always been so secretive. Because in a way it's very spiritual. The child abuse isn't just abuse, it's actually part of a religion, you see, a satanic religion. So it's very, very secret, hidden, confusing for people who don't understand how the satanic churches work. And you know, I'm still trying to get my head around a lot.
Yeah, but you have to remember, that's a part of it, and a big part of it, and the secretive. There are just horrible psychopathic people for money that will just, you know, they're not committed to a cult, they're not committed to a religion. It's dollars and cents. You sell the child to make money.
Yeah.
So we've got two aspects, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we have. I mean, it's an interesting time. I'm very positive, though, from an astrological perspective. 2026 is a fire horse.
Tell us about what is like what 2026 should astrologically look like. I know, and give us a little bit of information of what we might see based on the astrology.
So if you look at 2025 and you add that up in terms of numerology, it was a 9, right? Which means it was closure, endings, tying things up. And now we go into a 1 year, 2026, when you add up 2, 2, 6, it becomes 1. And that also corresponds to fire, horse in the Chinese zodiac. Fire is very creative and a horse has a lot of movement and power. So this is creativity. And I think we're seeing more and more on our planet a schism between two different timelines. One would be based on fear, the other would be based on love. More people now, more and more, are moving from the former, fear, into love. Of course, there's still a lot stuck in the fear around the world, and we have to have compassion for that, patience, something I've had to learn. But many of the fear-based people will start and have already started to leave, exit. They're moving into a new incarnation. They're moving on. And so this is why, in order to move out of the fear-based into the love-based, into the authentic frequency, a practice is very important. Sitting calm, a meditation, a prayer practice, reconnection to nature, moving away from synthetic foods to organic foods, decalcifying the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, real radical detoxification. All these things, protocols, are very important, because it's only then that the remembrance can be brought in energetically much more successfully, that we are fractals of one consciousness. And even the planets, for example, they're fragments of the divine consciousness as well. Jung would call them archetypes. The ancient Greeks called them gods. It doesn't really matter what we call them. They are energetic frequencies. And so right now, as I speak to you today, it's kind of funny, Stu and Alicia, that Mars, the Sun, and Venus are all 17 degrees Capricorn, 17th letter of the alphabet Q. And right opposite that is Jupiter, exalted in Cancer. What that means is there's a lot of shift happening in the material world. Capricorn rules the material, the practical. It's ruled by Saturn. But we've got Jupiter, the great benefic, making an opposition opposite it. And that is a very important archetype for the birth chart of the United States, because Jupiter was in Cancer at the time of 1776, July 4th. And here we have again the Jupiter, the energy of Jupiter, breathing abundance, newness, truth into a new financial system. So if you really want to ask me what I see, starting from now, with the 3-eye atlas around just before Christmas, right through to February 20th, which is the Saturn Neptune conjunction on the 0 point of Aries, which hasn't happened for over 6,000 years on that type part of the zodiac. The whole Saturn-Satan system is crumbling. Saturn has nowhere to go. He's at his weakest point in the zodiac at the beginning of Aries. This is pure math, pure music of the spheres, pure astrology. And what I see happening is a new quantum financial system. It will come into play at some point in the next few months. It has to.
No, sorry, carry on.
Well, I'm just, with the astrology, you see, with Saturn, Neptune. Neptune is the dissolving of the old system. Saturn is the old system. We're going to see a new system emerge in some way by late February, early March. It has to start to come into play, whatever that means, however it looks like. It's not for me to say. I can only speculate, like any of us. But I think we're very close now. And the astrology is very clear on this, that when Saturn conjoins Neptune on the 0 point of Aries, we see a whole new system coming, because the old system just collapses because it has no strength left.
So you mentioned that in 1776, right? The birth of America, we were in a Cancer. Do you say Jupiter Cancer?
So the sun, as you remember, July 4th, the sun's in Cancer. What was so holy about that time was not only was the sun in Cancer, but it was conjoined both benefics of Jupiter and Venus. In astrology, the benefics carry a lot of potency, a lot of auspiciousness, a lot of luck, a lot of power. Venus, Jupiter were conjoined the Sun. That is no accident that the United States was formed as a republic, set up as an entity, if you like, July 4th, 1776. Also, our second star, Sirius, was aligned to Jupiter and Venus and the Sun. Then that's so potent.
Wow.
That's the reimagination of Atlantis, and maybe in my mind, Lemuria as well. You see, Atlantis for me is the whole of the Americas. That's what I sense.
Wow. So this year, right, 2026, July 4th is going to be the 250th anniversary
Yes.
of the nation. And we saw on January 1st in Times Square with the ball dropping, right, the famous ball. Then they had a second ball that dropped that celebrated 250. And according to what they're saying is on July 4th, they're going to drop that ball again. Are you able to kind of tell where we will be at that point, you know, on July 4th, 250 years later?
Yes, of course I am.
Yeah. I know you can. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting with July 4th, and it's 2026, you see, what you have is Jupiter. Let me have a look to see. I think Jupiter is, well, it's literally at the last degree of Cancer, just before it goes into Leo, which is very interesting. And so the beneficness, the power of Jupiter in Cancer right through to July 4th is what's going to carry it through. It's very auspicious for the United States. It's like a renewal of her vows.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking also, Pluto makes an opposition by transit to Jupiter at that time. And as Jupiter goes into Leo, you pick up a lot of power with Jupiter. Leo also is powerful because it's creativity, it's the lion. Actually, it speaks to Donald Trump's chart quite a lot. He has a Leo ascendant. But so I definitely see 2026 being a very auspicious year for the United States, absolutely. And it's already starting to happen. I mean, look at it with Greenland and Canada. The Americas are coming together in an amazing way. And so for me, I wish more people had faith. It's so easy. It's so exciting. And then some people will say, George, you're just naive or you're hoodwinked into this psyop. I mean, I get attacked a lot. People saying, "Oh, George, it is a psyop, but it's a positive psyop. It's an awakening psyop for we the people to step back into control."
Yes.
And the planets carry potent energy, so we can activate ourselves alongside the planetary archetypes, and that's why I like astrology so much. You know, what are planets really? I mean, what is astrology? Really, astrology is cycles that follow planetary rhythms. Astrology is ancient timing mathematics. And yes, it's been part of a hidden agenda because the Vatican, the City of London, the Masonic lodges, they've always used astrology. And then the Vatican's tried to tell, especially Colombians and Venezuelans and Latin Americans, oh, astrology and tarot is the work of the devil, to stop them having the power.
Yes.
You see. And so it's a bit like the knife and the gun. It's neutral, meaning it's down to its application in its judgment. I can pick up the knife, cut the bread, feed the family on the one hand, or I can pick up the knife and do a satanic ritual murder on the other. It's neutral depending on how I apply myself, my frequency. And that's the same for astrology. Every single astrological sign has a beautiful Christ expression. Every single astrological sign has an utterly demonic one. We have the choice, freedom, free will, as to how we're going to use the application.
Yeah, beautifully said. It's the same with people that talk about guns.
Yeah.
You know, what is it for? Is it to defend your family and keep them safe? Or is it to just go out and do harm? And you know, I always liken, I had a discussion with someone who's appalled by guns. And I said, well, you know, a hammer what's the difference between a gun and a hammer? I mean, you could kill chances are if you hit someone over the head with a hammer a couple of times, they're going to have the same result if you shot them. So what's the difference? It's about intent, and it's about the use. So that, and again, that's been a whole,
But, you know, Alicia, I was brainwashed. I mean, if you had met me, you know, I was born in Britain. I'm a European by birth. If you had met me 12 years ago, even 12, maybe 13, around that time, I was still brainwashed about guns. Now, I always grew up shooting, hunting in England, but I was a bit more anti-guns because I didn't understand it. I'd been brainwashed in the European sense that guns are just bad, and now I fully get it. Guns aren't about killing animals. I mean, that's one part of it, and if it's done well, it works. If it's done badly, it's awful. The real purpose of guns is to stop the tyrannical government.
That's right.
When people have the guns, the tyrannical government can't control in the same way. And that's where the difference between European civilization and American civilization is very, very obvious.
Yeah. And that's the only reason that they haven't been able to they had to infiltrate, because you don't know whose house you're going to go to, and, you know, and who's going to have a gun. And most people that do have firearms are not, they're not putting it out there. You don't know, you know, and that's why the safest cities in our country are the ones where you know, carrying a gun is legal, because you don't know who you're going to start in with, and you're going to just kind of keep things nice and calm and quiet. And that's a hard one. I had an attorney when I was going through my divorce. This is someone who's supposed to understand the Constitution and the law, right? Supposedly telling me how guns are the most horrible thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, lawyers are really the most horrible thing. You're the downfall of the entire world. But again, it's the brainwashing and not fully understanding what this country was founded on, and why that's the Second Amendment right after freedom of speech.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, talking about brainwashing, George, how did the awakening happen for you?
Well, it's an interesting one, because people ask me that, and it was never a one moment. I mean, I do often say, because it's true, I had the dream, the download, a number of dreams, insights, 2 years before Trump won, that he would. And it's the same for Brexit. I've had a few epiphanies and moments of clarity through the dream world where it's helped push me on to where I'm at. At the same time, the 12-year-old boy that is George was down at Christian Union, I mean, it's very limited, the Christian Forum, or whatever it's called, asking questions, and sometimes getting into trouble for asking questions as a 12, 13-year-old boy on our ontology. Who are we? Can we know more about Christ the human? Mary Magdalene, was it not his wife? She seemed pretty sacred. And then years later, going to the, you know, all the different holy feminine sites of Portugal and the Knights Templar, and of course understanding the corruption of the Knights Templar at some point later on. I mean, my mentor, she's actually a Russian Ashkenazi Jew, a brilliant lady, unbelievably brilliant, and she's the one who's taught me really about inversion. Everything's been inverted, and so for me, it didn't happen, Stu, in one go. I think in that sense, I'm very human, meaning it's been incremental, it's been gradual, it's been organic. And I kind of like that for me, because in that sense, I'm very American. Forget the accent, because it's just as I grow through the path. Here I am in Colombia asking questions. My Spanish is pretty poor, by the way, but it's getting better. It's like, you know, you start to build up information. And because I'm motivated by truth, I mean, this is something truly truthful about me. And I can prove it to you in my astrology, but you're not astrologers, so we won't go there now. But it's to do with Pluto, directly opposite my sun. I am obsessed with truth, and it doesn't matter which side of the fence I'm on, meaning it doesn't matter if I'm British, white, Catholic, or Protestant. That is irrelevant to me. I want to know whether it's truthful. And that has set me free. Has it made, I don't want to say enemies, has it made me Mr. Unpopular from my British posh background? Absolutely. Yeah. Did it create a divorce and an estrangement with my daughter? Absolutely. Would I do it again? I say with a deep breath, absolutely. Because if we can't be truthful, we can't be authentic. That is not a life.
It's not. And I think all of us are on that same path and have had the same. I'm sorry, Stu, I didn't mean to. I remember when I started really getting clarity about religion, being raised Roman Catholic, Italian, very big part of, our culture. And let me tell you, my family was really upset. And of course, my children, ironically, saw a lot of it very clear from a very young age. And, what do you mean? And how are you doing this? And you're not going to church and you're not, and it just wasn't my truth. And yet it in that, opening of my eyes even more, it actually brought me even closer to God, to spirit, to other people, to that consciousness. And again, I'm not trying to bash religion, but it does separate us, and it keeps us very controlled. So for many of us that are in this movement, that are seeking truth, we're not offended. If you were raised a certain way I'm not offended. I just want to know what the truth is. I know I've had this talk with Laura Eisenhower too. She wasn't offended or upset about what she was going to find about her great grandfather. She just wanted to know the truth, and that would be what it would be. And I think we all are kind of in that, our listeners, we've stood up for what was the truth for us. And that unfortunately caused a lot of rifts with, people that we love.
It's also interesting you mentioned the word religion, because I love going to the roots of words. I love spells and spellings, being British. Of course, Stu and I we come from a culture where the English has really controlled the narrative in such a psychic way. But let's look at the word religion. It comes from the word religere, religio, which means reverence or obligation, duty. And in some ways, you see, the religion has created this heaviness of the ritual overtaking the practice. For me, the ritual has to support the practice. When the practice is overshadowed by the ritual, by the obligation, by the duty, it becomes heavy and then distorted. And that's true for all religions. And part of the Pluto in Aquarius narrative, and every 25 to 250 years, we have this Pluto in Aquarius cycle. And we had it with the Reign of Terror after the French Revolution and the Revolutionary Wars against Great Britain with the formation of the United States. And before that, we had it with Galileo and Copernicus. We have it again today. We have to come away from seeing ourselves through our own belief system. When we can detach ourselves from our belief system, we become freer. We become more objective, calmer. We observe as a witness, and then we can move through to acquire new faith, new beliefs, because we aren't our beliefs. That's part of us, but it isn't who we truly are. A soul is very different from what we believe, because what we believe today is very different from what we believe tomorrow. And to me, that's the evolution of the soul, which I would love to share with more and more people, because that's how we find freedom.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying about sort of waking up about 12, 13, because I've said this. I was 12, 13 in a history lesson, and I just had this feeling of, this is bullshit, man. But I didn't know why. Even though I thought about things maybe in a different way, I didn't know why for another 20 years until sort of after I started hearing things about, David Icke and all this sort of stuff in the 90s. But it was only after 9/11 that I really started to engage and look into all these things.
Yeah.
And that's where my proper awakening and being an awakener journey really started to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a pivotal age, because you start to really become more conscious at that age, developmentally. And it's kind of funny. I just was thinking about what you guys are saying, and I think I was really very blessed, because my father, who was American, he was Sicilian, very strong culture, and he always was searching for answers about the galactics. And going back to the 70s, that was strange, what I'm saying, for the most part. And it scared me a little bit. He still had a high reverence for Christ and God, but I didn't realize till a couple of decades later, the impact that had on me and my ability to like the being drawn into wanting to know more and everything. And when before, not to digress, but when he was in the hospital, I did an overnight with him, and we had never really talked about that. I mean, he was always reading books and talking and, about aliens and this and that. He believed he had an encounter and this, that, and the other thing. But that night in the hospital was so pivotal because here I was in my early 50s, and we talked about that. I never knew what he knew, like what I studied, that he knew that and he didn't know. And it was probably like 5 hours that, he should have been resting. And we just were going so deep. So it was, I just throw that out because I never really realized. And I'm sad that he died in 2019 for so many reasons, but he would be so, I don't want to use the word vindicated, but just so overjoyed by how much is coming out now, like out there, and just part of this and understanding, and people like you and other people who are, just so sharing of information. I think he's here somewhere, but it would be
But
nice.
I feel your father here, because I think with that type of archetype who is so far ahead, considering they are very much part of just normal society as well, it's very hard life. Because when you know those truths and the people around them have no comprehension, it's like the allegory of the cave by Plato, that, to climb out of the prison and to come in and see the light, and then you come back into the prison, you tell people about the light. Most people don't believe you, don't want to know.
Yes.
We've all been there, but I think for your father, for his generation, that was even harder.
Yeah, everyone
George,
thought it was nuts.
why do you think there's so many people that still can't see what is going on?
Okay, it's a really good question, and I will try and answer it from a number of perspectives, because it isn't just a one answer. It's not a one-trick pony. I want to now firstly talk about the human organism, that is the body. When the body is eating synthetic food, it is disconnected to nature. It's taken 3, 5, 7 vaccines. I'll give you a quick example as a side note. I do still do private readings, and I love it. It keeps my focus very sharp, and I love my work. And I probably do 10, 15 readings, intuitive astrology, healing readings a week. I had a client yesterday, a lovely man, and broken but beautiful soul. He took 11 vaccines since 2021. And his soul is so strong. He's still coming. He came to me, and he is open to some change. He's got a lot of healing to do, a lot of detoxification, but it shows how big that soul is. Because others who've done 5, even 10, they really are probably going to have to go into the next incarnation. They're so homogenetic. They're so heavy in toxins, metals, aluminum, barium, and then the pineal gland is totally calcified. They've got fluoride, they've got everything in their body, and then spiritually, they're just not open. So in a way, why are some people so unable to see it is because their body temple is so far away from what it should be. And this is where, as I grow older, I become more compassionate, less angry, because I know what those chemtrails are there for. I know what the Gates food is there for. I know what the chloride, fluoride, lead, arsenic water is there for in New York and London. Absolutely. So when Tom, Dick, and Fanny are not doing the spiritual work, are not awake, they haven't got a prayer, Jose. Not a prayer. And that's where I'm very compassionate towards them. At the same time, they've got to put the free will in. You've got to get out of bed one day, even if you've had, like the man from yesterday who came to me, 10 vaccines later, has the realization that it ain't bloody working. And now he's on a new path. That man's actually probably going to be the great teacher if he comes out the other side. He's going to be a bull in a china shop, because he's been on that other side in a way that us three haven't.
Right.
And so it's a very complex world. I mean, I've met a lady 2 or 3 years ago who left the earthly plane. She hasn't been vaccinated for 20 years, but she was in so much fear about the 5G towers in New York City that she died in her sleep, and yet she was so awake. And on the other hand, you'll have Tommy, who's taken 5 or 7 vaccines, has the epiphany, hits rock bottom, and then does this massive supercharge towards the light. How powerful. Life is complex. It ain't black and white. And so all I would say, Stu, to that very beautiful but complex question is try and pull away from your own limitations of perception and be open to a new way. Allow the grace of God, the chi to come in, allow the goosebumps to flow through the body, allow the prayer, the toning, the humming. Get into some salt water. The salt water is the same salt consistency as the blood. When you float in salt water, often the spine can unlock, and that's why I do these sound therapies in salt water for patients now. It helps unlock them, so then they suddenly have an awakening in the waters. We come from the water, we leave and go back into the waters. I do believe there's water above the firmament, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I've got flat all round on there, but I'm going to ask you that in a bit. So, adding to that question, it says in the Q drops, 4 to 6% loss forever. We're trying to wake up as many people as you can. Where we go one, we go all. Do you think it's going to come to a time, if the hammer drops or whatever, that we are going to see some sort of a timeline split where the people on the wrong side of it potentially are going to go in that direction of fear, and everyone else will be on the love vibration sort of a thing?
So I think it's happening already. I mean,
agree.
you see, in some ways, it doesn't have to be that biblical visual moment where the sea cuts in half and Bernard goes that way and Tommy goes that way. It might happen, but for most of us, I speak for myself, it's incremental. And I think it's how we put it, what we put into practice on a daily basis. And as that accrues, the vector is very different. And the days when I slip back, way back, Stu, way back, I get tired. There was a fire here the other day, just opposite my Airbnb. I had to evacuate in the middle of the night. That's why I'm quite tired. And then of course I could go into not fear, but healthy speculation as to why there was a fire straight there and stuff like that. But no, it was a firework. But life is random, life is tough, life is exciting. Look, polarity consciousness. I'm big into the Hermetic principles. The 4th rule of Hermeticism is the law of polarity. We come here to experience the polarity, but when we can make conscious that polarity, we can really operate better within it, because we can see it for what it is, and it won't govern us unconsciously anymore. So we choose, back to the knife, back to the gun, we choose to do this. When we can be in the driving seat as chooser, as activator, as creator, humans step into a very different frequency. So my answer to that question is more and more people are choosing a different path. Is it a bit slower than we may have imagined? Certainly, I speak for myself, yes. But I'm very positive. I see more and more people deeply skeptical now of the Saturn system, just not wanting anything to do with it, returning to the homestead, setting up a farm. If they haven't got resources, they go and work or live with someone to create a community and they can share. I think it's happening more and more. I'm looking to do that in North Carolina in the coming months.
Yeah, I do think it is already happening, because even though people that are not awake or thinking like, in the love vibration as opposed to fear, you can, I don't know about you, like Stu and I have talked about this, you can feel they're living a different timeline. Their belief systems are different. Their expectations are different. Their experiences are different than, we're in the same world or the same environment, if you will, town, city, state, whatever, but it does feel quite different. You could be in the same room and we're living a different timeline. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because everybody's soul develops the way it's supposed to, but I don't feel with so many people I used to have a little more in common with, or I could even be in their company. And it's not a matter of like, oh, I don't like that person or I can't stand that person. It's just the energy just doesn't work. There's not much to talk about. There's the motivation that we both have is totally different. So I think it's happening. I think we have different timelines that we're all living on.
And we pray for those 4 to 6% for the highest possibility for their outcome. You know, it's funny, when people get close to death, I don't anymore pray for them to live. I pray for their higher self to make the best move that works for them in their soul journey, in their soul contract. Otherwise, I'm putting my philosophy, my understanding, my limitations on them. You know, part of the thing is today, Stu and Alicia, is linear time. Saturn is linear time is dissolving.
Yes.
And especially with the Neptune in the mix, time is moving very, very differently. And the more we can comprehend that, quite frankly, scientific woo-woo, the more we really understand reality. It's quantum physics here. We're moving out of 3D reality. We're really playing with energy. Dolores Cannon says we come here to manipulate energy. You know, I love The Sleeping Prophet of Edgar Cayce.
Yes.
What he says just really resonates, whether it's about Atlantis or this timeline right now. And both those two prophets, in different ways, have very similar visions on 2026 through 2030 and beyond. And linear time is dissolving, and we can have, right up until the last moment, the choice to choose to move out of linear time, which is Chronos, and into Kairos. And it's a bit Greek, this, but Kairos is quality time, creative time. I love the Greeks because they have access to some of these older symbols, technologies, terms, ideas, which we should tune into. It's why I think astrology is so potent, because we become our astrology. We become activators. It doesn't limit us. It actually activates us. It empowers us.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned Edgar Cayce, because that was another one my dad was very into. So I learned about him from a very young age. And so much, I mean, among a lot of things, but he also was one who brought forth a lot of the truths about health and about things that we could be using and healthy things. So yeah, sometimes I say I wish there was nothing to do, because I would there's so much to read and study and write and just sit in a room and just like absorb so much knowledge, for like, I don't know, a week straight, and then
But a lot of it's remembering as well. Remember, you have the codes within you.
Yeah.
And it's part of tapping back into the Akashic. So it's both. It's ex and inner. In other words, it's exoteric, is esoteric. It's immanence, eminence. So some of the information we can get from without, but some of it, a lot of it, is from within. And I think tapping into the Akashic records, that's one language system, allows us, through meditation, prayer, toning, all these sort of practices, to really start to really remember.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point.
Easier, we've forgotten.
Can we just talk about death then? Not to be morbid at all, but
I love it.
A lot of people say we've been stuck in this reincarnation loop, and because we're not on a certain level of ascension and stuff, and there's other people that talk about near-death experiences that they've had and come back and stuff. And some people say go towards the light, and other people say, oh, don't go towards the light, and there's all this confusion in it. And I think I'll just say one more thing about that, is that I think that when you're scared of dying, you always live in this fear, right? But when you lose the fear of death, right, you really start to awaken and live in love. And this is why we're all here, putting our faces out and trying to wake up everyone else, because we're just not scared anymore. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you've really said it very well, because when we lose that fear, that energy takes us out of the timeline loop, the reincarnation cycle, I think, to a large extent. I can't say that definitively, because everyone's got a different soul journey, the soul path, agreements on the other side with family members, with other souls. But whether you go into that or out, interesting, but I don't get caught up in that, because I think the energy of fear and holding the energy of authenticity and love and potentiality. So when we do leave the body and we go back home, that sense of excitement to return, if we can practice those, the energy is totally shifted. I love Darius J. Wright. I think he is one of the great speakers on the concept of death and what's on the other side. I happen to also be friends with Daniel Brinkley, and he wrote that book, Saved by the Light.
Yeah.
I think both those individuals, very different life paths and stories, of course. One much older man and an ex-CIA operative, and the other just having had these experiences on the other side. They tell us so much wisdom. Both men so utterly, profoundly wise. I recommend any of the listeners who are still questioning and trying to find out more, as I am, to delve into the works of Darius J. Wright and Daniel Brinkley, because it's such reassurance that really death is just an utter Saturnian illusion to keep us stuck in fear.
Yeah, I've listened to Daniel quite a lot, but that Darius guy, that's the black guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of interviews with him. I can't think who's one
like,
now.
Well, Nino's Corner. He did a great one with him about a month or so, 2 months ago, about the firmament. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
And he's been on a lot of shows recently.
Well, let's talk about the firmament then, because we've got this flat round debate and everything. And how does astrology work? Because obviously all the globers would say stars are millions of miles away, constellations and this sort of stuff. With flat earthers talk about the firmament and are they above it and water's above and all these sorts of things. So where do you stand on this?
Well, I want to just say that there's a reason the globe replaced the firmament, because when you remove the firmament, you remove heaven. And when you remove God, you replace him with science.
Yes.
So the heliocentric model, it wasn't really created to explain the world. It was created to explain a world without God. So Copernicus and Darwin were used by societies obsessed with eliminating scripture from cosmology. A flat earth with a dome makes us the center of creation. The globe makes us suspend in meaningless, space. And to me, the deception wasn't scientific, it was spiritual. And science was the cover. So I'm not necessarily a flat earther yet. I think as you get to know me more, and I say this on all podcasts I get asked, I'm like a child in a sweet shop. I am open to explore, to learn, and I don't have a fixed opinion. And by looking you in the eye, you both in the eye and your community in the eye, I find immense satisfaction in that, because I find my authentic freedom in that. Because what I may learn tomorrow will change my opinion today. I sense the earth, our reality, is multidimensional depending on the level through which we access it, third, fourth, fifth, sixth dimension, etc. I don't believe it's a globe, but I don't believe it's necessarily totally flat either. I do believe in a firmament, and I believe the planets are energies. They are planets, whatever it means, because they carry a frequency. When I've done astrology, and I've done it for over 15 years now, and I do it fairly well, is Mars in that sign is a frequency. And when it makes an activation to another planet in your natal chart, I can interpret that. And the more I practice it, the better I get at its interpretation. Whether that planet is stuck in the firmament in some water space or in airspace, to me is kind of irrelevant. I will go more for the former these days, watery. But the point is, it carries a frequency, and I'm here to decode that frequency. Mars, war; Venus, love; Jupiter, expansion; Saturn, contraction; Uranus, innovation; Pluto, transformation. And how that music of the spheres adds up in your natal chart is wholly sacred and specific to you. That's why I love doing what I do. I believe in the firmament, but I think we have a lot more to uncover. Let's go down to the vaults of the Vatican, shall we? Let's do a group. Let's get a group. Let's go down, because I think we could uncover some really useful facts.
Well, on one of my other hats, I've got the words true earther. So I'm very open, but I don't, if someone told me it was round, flat, a tall field, some sort of matrix, whatever. It doesn't affect me that much at the moment. The awakening does. And there's always a chance, of course, as well, that the Earth could be flat and round at the same time, depending on your level of perception.
I think it's much bigger. I'm really into General Bird. I'm really into the ice wall. I'm really into gaps, portals going beyond. I'm open to the fact that the Pleiades could be a system beyond the ice wall, not just up there in the stars. It could be both. It could be neither. What I'm excited by is we are going to discover this within the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's bigger.
Have you seen the Terra Infinitia map by Noscom Fundon?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yes,
I love it. I mean, talk about poetic and dreamy. I mean, it's so expansive. It's so expansive. I mean, we were told for so long that we've discovered the whole world. There's nothing more to discover. Such bullshit. And may I say one other thing? And this is something I know in my heart of hearts. I haven't done the research like some of your communities, but Darwin, and I'll say Marx, I'll say Lenin, they were all conspiracies. They were all paid by the central banking system to push a narrative.
Agreed.
And I've known that for years. And to me, I'm very calm about it. I don't know all the information. I mean, I've been to I spent 10 days in the Galapagos. Oh, yes. Looking at the origin of species and looking at nature. I'm fascinated by nature. But to me, Darwin is dystopian. It's not right. I'm not saying the Bible message is totally right either. Again, it's a bit like flat Earth, round. I'm a man of nuance. I'm trying to figure out truth, and I'm not stuck in a narrative because I don't define myself with my belief system. I haven't really come on today and told you anything new. I'm okay about that.
Don't forget Darwin was a 33rd degree Mason, and
there we go. Thank you.
And the heliocentric model is all built around the number 6. There's 6s everywhere.
Yes.
Goes on and on.
Well done, you, Stu. I've learned something new today about the 6s. I didn't know that with the heliocentric model. I shall incorporate that now into my discourse. Thank you.
Yes.
Send me some more information on that, please. Thank you.
Well, it goes round in 24 hours, doesn't it? Which is a 6. I think it spins on its axis in 24 hours. It goes around the sun in let me look into this because it's 666. How it spins at 66.6 thousand miles an hour, and then it's following the sun through the universe at 600,000 miles an hour, and all these things.
So, if I can continue this wonderful theme that we've created today with application. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm going to continue that theme, let's claim back 666 for the light and not for the demonic. Isn't that the truth, guys?
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing that with all sorts of things. I mean, look at the swastika.
Yes,
that was a beautiful symbol in so many different old cultures.
And I mean, talk about a conspiracy. I'm really open. I mean, I'm getting ready to do a show on this. I really am open to the big switcheroo of the Second World War.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yes.
We've talked about that. We've discussed a lot of that, and it's I think that's a really tough one for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, that is probably the hardest.
And it's emotional too. It's highly emotional for a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't able to, like we just spoke about before. We're able to just look for the truth, whether it affects how we live, what we believe.
My heartbeat doesn't even jump in the sense of towards the truth. The only way it jumps is the pain I feel for so many people brainwashed not to allow the truth to go to ask the question.
Yeah. So I think that one is until a lot of these other things get revealed.
Yeah, that's a hot potato.
It's a buildup to be able to, just like they've done with so many things, the white hats, where before no one would even consider the idea, and then they've brought stuff out. Now people are like, oh, okay. That maybe that's also the whole Israel is last thing that is part of some of those belief systems and understanding of the truth. But I think we're with you on that one 100%.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
So one of the other things, because you mentioned health, both of you, a moment ago, just in passing, with the North Node in Pisces right now, there's a big focus on spiritual health and physical health, and they both work hand in glove together. I mean, one of the big things for human civilization is inflammation.
Yes.
And there's so many ways we have to all bring down that heat in our bodies, because we all know how it's been created through the pollution of the water supply, the pollution of the food supply, and just toxicity generally in our environment.
Yeah.
But that's where the spiritual side is as important as the physical, because if you think in terms of the elements, the fire is the most earth, which is the lightest, then air, and then water, and then earth. And we have to work on all 4 levels of the elements, meaning spirit is fire, emotions are water, mental is air, and physical is earth. And once we understand that, that's when we can really heal ourselves. And I think there's a big push towards that in the cosmic weather at the moment, helping us.
Yeah, it's also way of life too, because, you know, as a coach myself, one of my primary roles is to help people manage their stress, right? Look at our society and what stress does to the body. You know, fight or flight is wonderful because it can save your life and it can make you do something. But to live in that state 24/7, that's going to start causing dis-ease in the body. And so they've built a system for us where most people are always under some kind of stress and worry, and, you know, there's no lion chasing them, but that mortgage payment or that, you know, it's very much around money and around the fear system, and that just keeps, right, and that causes a lot of the problems in the body too.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think we have some big things ahead, because you're not the only person, George. Many people I listen to have been saying this next 6 months is, well, a lot of people. We see General Flynn now really pushing out there, Trump, you have to make arrests, and all of these things happening, that we can really feel now something big is coming. And we've all made the mistake of date fagging in the past. This is going to happen then, and that's going to happen.
We've all made that mistake. We all have.
Lost a lot of our friends and family sort of trying to wake them up by doing that.
Yeah, we did.
You know? Yeah.
But I think we all feel it. You know, that's the difference now. You know, I think even for a lot of us that had that enthusiasm about certain dates in the past, I think if we were really honest, our soul was telling us it wasn't time. And we're feeling more like things are just, I don't know. I think most of us in this community also feel more peaceful. You know, I know a couple of years ago, I was raging angry and pissed off and annoyed and everything, you know, in a fight mode. Now we're sort of moving into more of that healing, understanding.
Yeah, because it's so true, because it's a 1 year, you see. It's that creativity of what's coming in for the future rather than closing up what's the past. New systems now coming in, because all the outer planets, guys, they're all shifting to new signs this year. It's unprecedented.
Wow.
So that we're going to see the debt collapse. We're going to see institutions that used to depend on trust and that were stuck in the old system, they're going to be decimated. A black swan event will occur, but it may not be as big as black swan as we thought it might be, because in some ways it's quite incremental. What I think is masterful about the White Hat operation is actually how incremental and calm this slow demolition has been. I really believe that. I really and we're remembering. Part of the future is to remembering the ancient wisdom, reconnecting to the ancient wisdom. I mean, look at that device under Giza, under the pyramids they just rediscovered, that produces energy, vast energy hardware rediscovered. It's, you know, we're returning to the Homo luminous, which is the real human, rather than Homo sapiens. We're going to be very much light beings soon. I can feel it already. Our bodies are becoming lighter. We're not having to eat quite as much as we used to.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm exactly the same. I only eat once a day, and I don't eat massive meals anymore.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because about how we're all remembering, because yes, there's more of us out there that are kind of enlightening and helping other people to remember. But it's just really interesting how it's happening so much more. And even people you wouldn't think kind of get it, that are understanding more about nutrition and how what's right for the body. And I do believe, have no proof of this, but I do believe that what you said before about the healings that are happening en masse, like I think a lot of the fluoride that was part, I think they've done all this. I think the 45-47, I think a lot more went on during that period to now releasing, through RFK, right, about what they're doing or planning to do. And I just really believe, and the funniest way I can tell sometimes is when I look at the grass, because a couple of years ago, that grass around where I live in the suburbs here in New York was just really bad and horrible looking. And I remember last summer, I was like, holy crap, it's so lush. It's like, when I was a kid, like I remember that green. So I think a lot has been, all the shortages, were they really shortages, or were they clearing all the crap out? I mean, there was shortages of just about every product that we know, whether it was topical or eating, all those, the cattle that just keeled over and died, and the food plants that were exploding, and the personal products, feminine products, there were shortages of, because all that stuff was just poisoning us.
Well said.
Yeah. Just got a quick question here for you. From Simone. Darius has strong Lyran vibes. Does George agree?
Yes. I mean, I think it's interesting with Lyra, because am I not right in saying that's one of the oldest ancient roots of where humanity come from? It's one of the birth parts of our galaxy, even universe, from what I understand, the Lyran Wars. Yes, I think he does. He has very powerful king archetype. But it's interesting with him, because sometimes when the questioner asks him a certain question, he can't answer it in the logical left brain Western European way, because for him his knowledge is so deeply embodied in the mystical innate. I can't really describe it. His access to knowledge, it's very divine as opposed to intellectual. He's not at all intellectual, and I think that's why that type of leadership for the future is watch that space, because it's very authentic.
Driven.
Stu, just so you know, people in the chat are asking, and George, for your information. So I see right on screen you have your website that everyone can go to. Is there any other links that people should
be aware of? I mean, I'm actually, it's very exciting. I'm having my website redone.
Oh, yeah. You are too.
It's very exciting. I haven't done it for a while. It's going to be really lovely. It's going to be a nice portal so everyone can sort of find me and see what I'm up to. But you can still contact me through the current website at georgehLewis.com. Or you can email me at georgehLewis@me.com, or find me on Instagram at georgehLewis. I mean, I'm George H. Lewis everywhere. But the new website will be up in about 3 weeks' time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm available for reading. I like to do, readings for people. I try and do like 10 a week. Not too many more. But.
Yeah, make sure you put the H in there, people, because George did say that if you don't, people can't find you.
Well, you go to a wonderful funerary director down in Texas, and apparently he's excellent at what he does.
I bet he is. Yeah, people, it's like when we've got a guest on like George, that's just such a captivating listen. It's difficult for me especially. I'm a man. I can't do two things at once, can I?
But I can't either, Stu. I think men, we're not meant to.
No, you're probably right. Which means we focus, George, on one thing at a time when necessary. So if anyone does have any questions, because we've always got the same wonderful family in here, much love to all. Anything you want us to ask, just type it in all capitals and it will just ping right now.
It's funny what you guys say about men. Like, we've had this discussion all the time, right? How many years have they tried to manipulate us for men to be angry at women for what they're not meant to do, and women to be mad at men, right? Trying to change the inherent nature of what each of our sexes are
Right.
meant to be, and not celebrating, and I think, if I could go out on a limb, I think probably people that have the most successful relationships, not where they're just together because they just couldn't be bothered like separating, but people who genuinely stay in love and have a respect and have these long relationships, I think it's because they figured that out, that we're different. Or even in a same-sex relationship, you understand the makeup of what the person is, and you accept that and celebrate it and aren't trying to change.
I think
And
it's so important what you're bringing up, because the new earth is about integrity in relationships, and ultimately it's relationships between two people.
yes,
And that, in the new earth, the age of Aquarius, will be very multifarious. It will be very multifaceted, I should say. It could be same sex, it doesn't really matter, but there's an integrity in that sacred union between those two people, and that's what must be celebrated and encouraged. And of course, the celebration of the family is actually the alpha and the omega, because we are going to need to support families to have children, for our planet to thrive. It's not the opposite, that's the inversion. We are going to have, in the next 30-40 years, a little bit of a quite a big downward spiral of birth, until we heal and get the babies, without any injections, thriving. It's going to take some time.
yeah.
Well,
And I think the abundance, oh, sorry, Stu, but the abundance is going to be part of it, because so many people make decisions about family and children based on money. I mean, I could think of so many people that are in their 50s and said, oh, we never had enough money. And that has been programmed into us.
Yeah.
I was going to say exactly the same. In the golden age, when things are different and people aren't bound to work 2 jobs and bills and all these things, people are going to be wanting, babies and travel and family life and seeing the world, whether it's round, flat, or whatever it is, and just experiencing the beauty of this realm we live in.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. Well, I'm so
Yeah.
happy you came on. I'm sorry about the mix-up we had,
Sure,
but it
go
all
ahead.
worked out.
I'll just ask you one quick question, because we were talking about gold and silver before we came on.
Very much so,
Just have
absolutely.
a little chat about gold,
love
silver, in crypto or anything. None of us are financial advisors.
No, I'm not, but I've been on this bandwagon for, 6-7 years now, I'd say. Gold, silver is just sense, and I've been into the silver thing for a while. I just love it because it's undervalued. Also, I look at ratios between masculine and feminine, the sacred masculine gold, the sacred feminine silver. Silver's been kept down much more relatively. I understand the ratio is around 60-1 at the moment. It has to get closer to 17-1. So just by my saying that, please, everyone in our community, just get some silver. I know it's getting harder, but do it. It's still going to go up exponentially. That's my little prophetic message.
Yeah.
And XRP and XLM, for me, and I think I'm speaking to the choir here, of course, is aligned with gold and silver.
Yes.
I look at the symbols of XLM, XRP, and that's part of the new Space Force. It's connected to, actually, I'm going to go really to the core of it, the Atlantean trade system.
Yeah, wonderful.
And this is the memory I have with XRP. And there's also XDC, which is copper.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all ISO 222 coins.
You see, what I love about you, Stu, you're the real researcher, you see. I love spending time with researchers, because I'm very left I'm very right brain. I'm an artist, mystic. I get this access information sometimes in a very different way. So I love to hear the researcher archetype come in, because it gives me the goosebumps. Say, yes, together we're doing something. And so please, community, let's get some copper, let's get some silver, and of course gold, and maybe platinum. And then of course XRP and XLM, it's still very, very inexpensive. And I believe the white hats are keeping it at that, so we can get in before it's not too late, but more expensive.
Well, look what happened with Bitcoin, people. Oh, I've missed the boat. And people are even saying that I've missed the boat with silver. But if you've got 50 quid or 100 quid and you can get yourself 25 XRP, it's worth just having them there, isn't it? Because you don't know. And I mean, silver at the moment, silver is trading at just under $80, just under £60. But if you go on bullion by post, just one for example, you can't buy 1 ounce of silver. Well, you can buy it, but it costs you £92.40 for the best value silver coin ounce. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Mm. And the Bank of Japan has said it's over $100 now.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
You know, if you could have got, you know, we always compare it to Bitcoin because it's just so obvious, you know, the way it went up, right? But if you could have gotten Bitcoin for $100, $200, would you do it? Of course, you know, like, and nobody says, you know, I think some people out there talk about it like you have to hoard and get so much. And that's very daunting for people who don't have a lot of means. You don't have to. You just have to get a little. Just be in the game somehow. It's meant for everyone. Yeah. So if you can, you know, only afford $10, I mean, we have this little thing in my house we've bought, but we'll save up change. Although now after talking to Matt Geiger, Stu, where he talks about the value of U.S. change, but nonetheless, when we have like a couple of dollars or we have, you know, change, we'll just let it add up. It adds up quickly, $25, $30, and then we just turn it into, you know, XLM or XRP or XDC. It's just.
Well, you know, Matt Geiger talks all the time about, you know, if you haven't got a lot of money to invest in these, get a lump of platinum, you know, get a bit of copper, stuff like that, and get your coins and things. And you'll know this, George. It's like betting on the Grand National, isn't it? You've got to pick a few horses and stick on them.
I love it. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
All right. So what time is it there in Colombia now?
Oh, it's easy. I mean, this is the great thing about being in the Western sphere. I mean, I'm on New York time.
Oh,
no jet lag.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, enjoy. And I hope, what are you going to be doing there that we could live vicariously with you? Are you posting things? Are you putting pictures up?
A little bit on I have a private Telegram channel, which anyone who approaches me personally, I can share that. Okay. Actually, with your community, I could send you the link actually to that if you'd like.
Yeah.
I mean, I post on that. I mean, Instagram, I've been so shadow banned off and on that. So it's kind of, I'm just going to send it to you, Alicia, now on your WhatsApp. So then you can add it. How's that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
If you put that in the Rumble chat, Elisa, everyone will get that.
Okay. Share.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I shall join that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll send it to you both right now. Hang on.
Perfect.
Where are we? There we go. And that's my Telegram. And I do audio updates every day on there where I am. I'm doing a fabulous retreat in Mexico, second week of February at a friend's place. I've got, I think, one space left.
That's wonderful. I'm glad. Yeah, I would have loved to. We just had a couple of things we couldn't. But I know you're going to be doing more. So timing is everything, right?
Yeah. Hasn't Telegram been a fantastic platform for us all since Twitter went down in 21? Absolutely brilliant. I still have to go on Facebook and put little things on there for the people that just will not leave that community and come and have a look. People are sending you something 3 months later. Have you seen this? You'll post it on Telegram when it happens. You know, yeah. And you post something on Facebook.
I know.
And you get
I've never had a Facebook account. I think someone set up an art page for me years ago, but I've never used it. So I've never done the Facebook stuff. It's funny.
Well, I'm on my 8th at the moment, just because that's where all the people I know are. Or a lot of them on Telegram and stuff, and a lot of them follow my news and watch on Ramble and things. But you know, for those stragglers, may I say, that are my friends and family and live in my local town, that's where the friend base is. And you know, we have to go. Local action equals national impact, as General.
There we go. I love that. Local action equals national impact. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, it's been lovely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, we want to have you on again soon. Enjoy your wonderful trip. You're definitely an inspiration and a role model for how you live in the way you just up and enjoy different parts of this world. So have a wonderful time, and we will absolutely have you on again soon.
God bless.
Excellent. You. And talking about all the 666s and swastikas earlier, symbolism will be their downfall. Yes, Good. It will. Right, we've got a little minute and a half intro, but thank you, George. Absolutely.
Much love.
Lots of love to you both. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone in the chat. We love you.
This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. And you can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever. That is the metaphor which I frequently think of when I think that I'm not empowered. It is the greatest lesson for me, and I think for everybody else, to know that we're on the winning side and that we win in the end.